My project was how mental health affects physical health and how it's portrayed in the media. So first is the exploration, and my explorations were how mental health affects the physical well-being, how the media portrays both versions of health, and how the media's portrayal affects others in society. So I chose to do this because I'm planning on going into physical therapy, and that's part of the health system, and every single part of the health system involves mental health and physical health, and it focuses on the well-being of the individuals in the program. The classes I took that led me to this were connectives, and my connective was focused on health and well-being. My natural science was the science of well-being and malaise. My social science was inequality and well-being. My humanities was the impact of mental illness on the creative mind, and my integrative was pop culture, the entertainment industry, and you. Next is my methodology of how I did all my research. So how my sources were found were using online databases via Lebanon Valley College, and the main database I used was Academic Research Premier because it's covered every topic I needed it to, because it was all over the place between entertainment and health. And I made sure each article or survey went through a list of things to make sure there was no bias or at least very little bias. So the authors were checked for pre-existing motives as to why they would be doing this research. And they were also checked to make sure they came from reliable sources or journals. And every single source I used came from a peer-reviewed journal to make sure it was all the same and it all covered the same stuff that was in other journals as well. So first is my natural sciences class and how that influenced the project. And it fell under the life sciences portion, which is biology, chemistry, and neurology, because it focuses on the people itself and how they function like health-wise in their mainly physical health here. So the first paper I found was the association between mental health status and bone mineral density. This focuses on nutrition and how your nutrition can affect your mental health status, and this fell under the biology category. This research was done in South Korea, and the research was just focusing on bone mineral density and nutrition and how it affects someone's mental health or someone's mental illness. And in the end, it found that increased bone mineral density increased recovery from mental health problems. So those who had proper nutrition and proper bone mineral density were often able to recover from mental breakdown, so to speak, faster than those with lower bone mineral density. My next article was Joint Association of Physical Activity and Body Weight with Subsequent Physical and Mental Functioning. The study was done in Finland, and it was looking at weight and physical activity and how this led to someone's physical and mental functioning. And it was found that people who were overweight had poor physical functioning, which led to their mental functioning being poor as well. And then those who were of proper weight had normal physical functioning, and that led to mental functioning. There was no direct correlation between weight and the mental functioning, but because the physical functioning was directly correlated to the weight, the physical functioning also directly correlated to the mental functioning, which allowed the weight and mental functioning to be correlated through like a transverse property. And in the end, it found that physical activity is important to the physical and mental functioning through this transverse property of correlation. Next is the social sciences. So the social sciences I looked at were psychology and sociology. Psychology is the study of mind. Sociology is like the study of society and cultures. And the first thing I looked at was the aging, anxieties, and disturbed eating in female students. And this study was done in the United Kingdom of university students, and it found that age was a weak predictor of eating habits in female students. However, anxiety was able to predict the eating disorders. And most people with higher anxiety often had higher level eating disorders. So people simple as bulimia had lower anxiety, while anorexia was of higher anxiety levels. And in conclusion, the journal came to the idea of intervention should be considered whether they have low anxiety or high anxiety to talk about eating disorders. And next is the risk to productive factors for mental health morbidity in a community sample in female to male transmasculine adults. and this was done in the United States, and its focuses on mental illnesses such as depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and PTSD. And it found with people with relationships or of older age or personal resilience can often fight mental illnesses better than others who are not in a relationship or of a younger age. And this focuses on how other people can make an impact on your life or how other people can impact your fight for mental illnesses. And even if you do come from the trans-masculine adult community, you do have resources to fight mental illnesses such as depression and anxiety, which help focus on how other people make an impact on your mental health, or the idea of extrinsic factors matter more to mental health than intrinsic factors. Next was my humanities, and this is the portion where I tied media into the health factor. So the humanities are fashion, art, film, and literature. I looked at fashion, art, and film in this. And so the fashion, I looked at the article Short-Term Effects of Media Exposure on the Thin Ideal in Female Inpatients with an Eating Disorder compared to Female Inpatients with Mood or Anxiety Disorder or Women with No Psychiatric Disorder. This was done in the United States, and in every single population, flipping through a magazine did not cause negative thoughts. However, idealizing the skinny image presented by the media did cause negative thoughts whether they had a disorder or not. So many of the normal people with no psychiatric disorder did suffer from negative thoughts when they were idealizing the skinny image that the media portrayed. And it did end up causing them to think about possibly doing an eating disorder, but they never did that. But those who did have an eating disorder or anxiety did think and participate in the eating disorder culture when they did idealize the skinny image the media presented. Next is music, and the journal I used was Man Down, The Evolution of Masculinity and Mental Health Narratives in Rap Music. And this talks about how the media has been doing good for the masculine mental health image, and how rap has been changing culture perceptions of mental illness and masculinity. So it's making it okay to talk about mental illness being a man rather than the idea of men aren't allowed to cry. And this promotes seeking help for mental illness rather than self-medicating with drugs and alcohol like past rap music did or other music has done in the past. Now it talks about seeking therapy or seeking help for mental illnesses, such as the artist NF, who talks a lot about how he goes to therapy for his mental illnesses and has a whole entire album called Therapy Session. And the film I looked at was Silver Linings Playbook, and the idea behind Silver Linings Playbook is that there's a man with bipolar disorder, and he meets someone else with a mental illness but is unnamed, and they realize that they have a lot more in common than what they seem. And this whole idea of this film is not to judge a person by their cover, which seems very generic, but it talks about how the silver linings is looking for the good things in life, as well as talking about football a little bit, but that's not the main idea. The main idea is you can't define a person based off their mental illness because they are more than that. And it's that those with illnesses are people too, and you can't expect anything different out of them, and you can't expect them to change. And this helps you look at how therapy can help with mental health and others in your life can help with it as well. So showing again how extrinsic factors are more important than the intrinsic factors when it comes to mental health. And then this often led to the physical health being improved as well, because both members participated in a dance competition which contributed to better physical health while they were bettering their mental health. And this also helps people understand the feeling of being on medicine with a mental illness, because the main character chose not to take his medicine because he didn't like how it made him feel. And this kind of gives people without a mental illness a look into those with one. So next is my integration. And my integration is just combining all aspects of my natural science, social science, and humanities. And all of these ideas are cohesive, and it's to understand that health is often controlled extrinsically, as I mentioned multiple times. Overall ideas that it has is that media makes a big impact on mental health, whether it can be good or bad. The good ways media has affected mental health is through Silver Linings Playbook or rap music talking about seeking therapy. But negative ways that it's impacted it is through fashion magazines or talking about how idealized the skinny images to society. And physical and mental health are often related. And due to this, if media affects mental health so much, then it also affects physical health. Again, looking at the eating disorders, with media affecting the mental health of thinking that they need to be skinny, it affects their physical health of causing them to have eating disorders and not be healthy or have proper nutrition, which often leads to mental health decreasing. If you look at the bone mineral density study, saying that if you don't have proper nutrition, your physical health and mental health will be greatly decreased. So everything correlates with each other, showing that media does affect the mental health and also affects the physical health. Next is my integrative. And in my integrative, it influenced a lot of my decisions in my humanities portion because my integrative was about pop culture and how pop culture is in our society. So it influenced the film choice in the humanities section. It also influenced my articles looking at media influencing society, and that was again in the humanities section. And also influenced into looking at media looking at health, which was again in the humanities portion because most media occurs in humanities rather than in our sciences. Next is analyzing all this data. And in conclusion, I came to the terms with mental health often influences physical health, as I said many times, and vice versa. Physical health often influences mental health. And because media has a big influence on health as a whole, it can often change our perspective on mental health and physical health and can often cause damage to the health, or it can influence our health to be better. So media can be a positive and negative influence depending on what side of it is looked at. There's no correct answer whether media is good or bad for our health. It's more of what side you look at. So next is my reflection. And it's important for other people to know that health can be affected by minor things. It can be affected of whether someone is in a relationship or whether someone has mental resilience or based off their weight. And it's those minor things that make the bigger impact into their health. And the idea is just to remember kindness and understand what people go through, such as what's in the Silver Linings Playbook. And this was really important to me because I plan on being a physical therapist. So it's good to know how physical recovery can be affected by the media or can be affected by their mental health. And it's always knowing to keep mental health in check along with physical health as they're going through the whole process. And that is all. Thank you.